This is the module 2, entering the food service industry. In this uh, module, we will basically give an initial training to people and unemployed people who like to enter the food industry service. This is very basic. This is for people who have no previous experience. And the main aim of this program is to provide the trainee the opportunity to acquire the basic knowledge and skills necessary to obtain first entry employment in the food industry. Um, you should know that the food service industry is a fast growing industry and there are opportunities to be employed full time or part time. In most countries, such employment is related to the summer holidays or during periods or peak periods. In some countries, of course, such peak periods could be winter time. But there are opportunities for all year full time employment, depending on whether you work for an establishment which is near a holiday resort or in some city which operates 12 months per year. The necessary skills and knowledge that will enable someone to acquire such a job refers to different type of establishments that provide food service, um, and this includes functions and role and main sectors of activities: the hotel and catering industry, welfare, industrial, and institutional catering. Sometimes you may find jobs in school or colleges and university canteens. Transport catering is another section that relates to food industry service, um, shipping, airports, airplanes, restaurants, cafeterias, and bars. Uh, Sometimes fast food establishments um, uh, could hire such employees, and of course, any food, drink, takeaway, delivery, and catering service. Now, some basics include the understanding of what we mean by front of the house and back of the house service. When we say front of the house, you should know that we, that this includes the understanding how the front of the house operates and how important it is for the overall success of a restaurant and catering establishment. The front of the house refers to any area, any part of the restaurant that a customer would be exposed and accommodated, including the entry and waiting area, hostess station, dining room, etc. It also refers to all services that the customer will be provided with if they so wish or exposed to during their visit at the restaurant. Um, Management of the front house includes customer service, hiring and training staff, stocking and designing the dining room uh, and bar, and of course planning restaurant promotions, etc. Um, Services include the receiving and welcoming the customer. So we have to understand certain terminology here: the doorman, the host, the hostess, maitre, serving the customer. In this module, we also develop a list of definitions of certain words, a glossary as we call it. So these glossaries available and attached for this module. Um, Now, organizing and arranging the garnishing, for example, hot and cold dishes, starters, salads, hors d'oeuvres, main dishes, meat, fish, salads, vegetables, etc., are all part of this front of the house service. Of course, most of these things come from the back of the house, as we will see in a minute. Now, preparing, serving, and selling hot and cold dishes, alcoholic drinks, and beverages is part of the front house delivery. Issuing and presenting the bill to the customer, for example, receiving and handling money, or of course, using nowadays these automatic credit card payment machines on the spot. Very important part of this is always the hygienic maintenance and cleanness of the front of the house areas, and we should never forget about this because this is sometimes a selling point that the customer should feel safe about this and be able to bring them back to the restaurant or to to the catering service. The Some of the activities of the back of the house and operations include the fact that the back of the house encompasses all the behind the scenes areas that the customer usually never sees. Food and other materials are received, stored appropriately, and distributed with minimum waste. Transferring of food and other ingredients, cooking, of course. So food is included in the bag of the service or the bag of the house, and this includes recipes, calculation, testing, standardization, requiring the appropriate amounts from the storeroom, etc. Different people, as we will see later on, the different roles of people in this front of the house and back of the house have different responsibilities. But here we should also talk about food ingredients and should be clean and pre-prepared, so the the back of the house can serve the front of the house appropriately. Food is cooked in the back of the house, uh, placed in plates, garnished, decorated, etc. And of course, again, we should remember the hygienic maintenance and cleanness of the back of the house areas. The front of the house now employment that, of course, depending on the proficient of someone could take different positions. But as we said, this is for basic entry, but you should be aware of the different positions and different people that you probably going to work for. But this include the front of the house restaurant manager, sometimes head waiter. All this depends on how big the establishment is and where it's located. Station head waiter, sometimes station waiter, assistant station, apprentices, trainees. I mean, you could start as an apprentices trainee sometimes. There is also a head waiter, a wine waiter, and one or more trainees. There can also be a carver, a buffet chef, and other additional personnel required, always according to the size and the range of activities of the restaurant. It may also include a restaurant reception, welcoming the guests, the cashier sometimes, the so-called money handler, buffet operator, server, as well as a number of assistants. So entry could mean really starting as an assistant sometimes, but you should be aware and understand the environment where you'll be working for. Employees working in the front of the house area are usually visible by the public customers, so this is something you should keep in mind. This is only one of the many other reasons they must be clean and neatly dressed. So this is very important. Of course, depending on the establishment, you would be required to have keep some minimum standards, and you will be directed by your employer on what you should wear, dressed, etc. So the appearance and behavior is very important, and this is what what the customer looks at when they first enter the restaurant. Cleanliness and hygienic levels should be established and always, especially for the front. Now, the back of the house employment includes different positions. Um, and of course, that's where we store and prepare cooked food and cooked and served. The cooks, as we call it, they work in the back of the house, usually unseen by the public. Sometimes we may realize and see a cook, a chef, taking it out to the customers and well dressed and clean and just to uh, get a feedback from the customers whether the food was okay, etc. Sometimes this is very much respected by the customers. Um, in most kitchens, the back of the house has a strict hierarchy with each staff member performing a specific task. Um Depending on the size and the scope of the business, of course, the kitchen may be simple and easily managed, like, for example, a small nursery school canteen or a counter self-service cafeteria. So, depending on this, it could be from 3 to 5 people up to 20 or 30 people sometimes. So, one should be prepared to work in small establishments or in the bigger establishments. And the bigger the establishment, of course, the more unstable you can be as an employee, meaning that if you make several serious mistakes, you should be ready to lose your job. So you have to be very careful. In addition, the back of the house positions for food service could have the following titles like executive chef or an executive chef assistant or pastry chef or a baker, garde manager as we call it, and chef de partie, night cook and breakfast cook, a pantry and a commis, chef steward, and a banquet chef are titles that we find in some restaurant establishments. Now, important are personal qualities and characteristics for success in food preparation and service. Of course, any employee should have a basic physical health, obtain an appropriate health certificate, may be required sometimes before you hire for such establishments. You should be informative, courteous, and willing to help the customers. You should be polite, uh, have the right smile in your face. So this is very important. Um, be clean and neat and have an attractive appearance. Uh, Face, as mentioned already, you should have a positive face, positive attitude. Clothing and uniform are very important, and do not overdo it with cosmetics. So no excessive cosmetics. Be always positive when working with others, including the customer, but including your colleagues, and a cooperative team member. Be a cooperative team member, in other words, and willing to accept supervision. And 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 sometimes, if something goes wrong in the front of the house, the head waiter has to appear that he's angry, so he may do that sometimes just for the eyes of the customers. So don't take personally any such approaches. You should be reliable, dependable, and sensitive, and willing to maintain the food hygiene standards, obey rules and regulations. This is very important. And of course, you should keep always in mind safety for you and the customers and the people around you. Some basic knowledge and skills for the entry job in the food preparation sector include effective communication skills. If you're working in a country where the main language is not your language, you should be able to, of course, speak in English well, if this is the language of communication, but local language, knowing local language is very important. In most cases, some customers, if they have a waiter, for example, who is not from their country and they don't like to speak English in their own country, so you have to keep that in mind. Of course, this all depends on the rules of the establishment that they will hire you. So, effective maintenance of kitchen is important. Personal and food hygiene, washing, cleaning, preparation. For example, for cutting and slicing of vegetables, all this is very important. This is going to be part of the instructions. Of course, you'll be receiving uh, cooking of different types of basic stocks, preparation, garnishing, dressing is part of all the food preparation sector, and that you, as a newcomer in this kind of business, you may be able to start developing some knowledge and skills in how to do certain preparations, and this is an advantage for anyone in this business to develop new skills and new knowledge and new competences in order to advance in the food industry service. Now, we would discuss the necessary competences to be able to do certain tasks in the food industry service. And there are six main tasks that we're going to analyze a little bit. So, this is what you should be able to have competence or be able to develop competence within a short time after being hired in the food industry service. So, maintain personal hygiene is probably a priority of all nowadays. Maintain a safe working environment, maintain a safe and hygienic working environment, dealing effectively with fire, dealing effectively with earthquakes, and applying effective measures for environmental protection. So let's see. Um, Report immediately to an unauthorized person any contamination, any disease, any pollution that you realize. Uh, any Always maintain and renew all necessary health certificates that you have for you as a person according to the legislation, um, and know how to carry out all working tasks in the right sequence, uh, following always the safety and hygiene rules. Um, in addition, for maintaining personal hygiene, you should be able to explain why it is necessary to understand also and explain why it is necessary to follow the rules, regulations, and provisions. Where from credible and reliable information regarding the current registration should be acquired, for example, be able to give an account on the main rules and regulations to follow in your own working environment in order to maintain. If you are able to explain these things, that means you understood them. This is the idea. What is the correct and appropriate uniform you should wear? What is the importance and contribution of the clothing material of your uniform? Why and to whom should any disease or contamination be reported? So if you can answer all these questions, that means you're ready to work. Why is it important to maintain proper personal hygiene in your own working environment? Us two now, where we discuss certain competences on maintaining personal safety in the working environment, understand all possible threats and dangers for personal safety and how to avoid these. Take all necessary protective measures for avoiding any possible dangers and report immediately all possible threats and dangers to the authorized person. Also, be informed, aware of all internal procedures and rules concerning safety. So, depending on the establishment, there will be different procedures and different rules. Use all tools and equipment correctly according to the manufacturer's instructions and the rules of the establishment, and be informed about the location of the first aid box, its content, and how it is used. This is very important. Additional competences, you should be able to understand them by answering these questions to yourself. Why is it necessary to obey the safety and hygiene rules and follow the legislative provisions? What are the possible threats and dangers for your personal safety in your personal working environment? And why is it necessary to wear the appropriate uniform? What are the safety rules for your working position? Why is it necessary to know all rules? Why is it essential to report all possible threats and dangers? Competences dealing with fire effectively. Be informed, record by memory, and be able to apply promptly and effectively the right procedure for direct intervention in case of fire outbreak. Activate as promptly all as possible the alarm system if it's not automatic. Directly inform the right person and the appropriate local authorities about the fire. Use the appropriate fire extinguisher, so know how to use it and equipment according to the manufacturer instructions. Follow accurately all emergency instructions. Follow all abandoning procedures without panic and according to the instructions. Gather together with the rest of the people according to the authorities' instructions and the establishment's policy. To see if you understand the competences that you need to know, you should be able to reply to these questions. Why? Which are the possible causes of fire? What are the necessary preventative measures for minimizing the danger of fire? What procedures should be followed in case of fire? And what are the emergency switches and how are they activated? Also, why must you never go near the fire unless this is absolutely safe? For what reasons should the fire protection legislation provisions be fully obeyed? And how and from where can you be informed about the provisions of fire? Task includes competences on dealing with earthquakes. Maybe are not so frequent, but depends on the country and region you work in. This may be frequent sometimes. Be well informed and have memorized what needs to be done in case of an earthquake so as to promptly take necessary actions. Sometimes there are announcements and instructions and procedures posted on walls in according to the local legislation. Activate immediately the alarm control system within their within your working area. Switch off all electric and gas appliances in order to minimize any possibility for catching fire. Also, inform immediately the right person. Strictly follow all safety and emergency instructions. Follow the evacuation instructions. Gather together with the rest of the people according to the authority instructions and the establishment's policies. Some of the uh, competences for this is to be able to state the procedures to be followed in case of an earthquake, be aware about where the emergency switches are, know where there are points for safety in the working area, um, and be informed about the existing legislation and safety rules. Task 5 refers to maintaining hygiene and safety in the working environment. This includes the understanding of possible dangers and reporting them to the appropriate person. Ensure that all working areas under your responsibility, are safely protected from any non-authorized accessibility. Ensure that all storage areas are maintained clean, safe, and protected. Report immediately to the authorized person any losses of commodities, personal objects, etc. Report immediately to the authorized person the presence of any unexpected, unwanted, and suspicious individual in the working area. Some competences refer to having a record of what keys, equipment, and working areas should always be safely locked. Recognize the importance of taking care and protecting yourself from any possible threats and dangerous situations. Why is it important to strictly follow all rules and regulations deriving from the current security legislation, and appreciate the importance of following all legal procedures regarding lost objects? Ensure you know from whom or where you can obtain information regarding the registration. Understand the reasons why no information about the business and the work environment should be given to any unauthorized person, and understand why it is important to report to the appropriate person any unusual incident. The task 6, which refers to environmental protection, requires the following uh, competences: recognize, about, be informed about and promote the significance of environmental protection, apply the rules and regulations of such protection, promote the utilization of environment friendly products and services, recognize water and other energy resources. Some competences relating to this, and in a formal question, um, that you should be asking yourself: what is the policy, internal rules, regulations, procedures, and processes for environment protection? What are the legal and legislative rules and requirements? Which of the materials used are classified as environmental or environment friendly and which not? Which methods and practices are considered good and effective for saving water and energy? And which is the correct procedure for the storage? Give an account of all recycled materials and which are considered as environment non-friendly products, materials, and wastage. I believe that having all this content understood and be able to apply, that is, having the skills and competences, you should be able to start um, and entry the food and service uh, industry and be able to be employed. Good luck.